Or you go ahead and lead the way.
All right, pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll open it up for, or no, we'll start with roll call, please.
Chair Squatter,
Here.
Councilman Brady, here, Mr. Murdoch,
Here.
Mr. Chapman is absent. You have a comment.
Okay, thank you. Move to item B, comments from the public. I don't see anything. Do we even have the ability to go on? We don't, right? We don't go online now. We're done, so, okay.
Let's say submitted ahead of time.
Okay. And I think submitted at that time. Okay, we'll move to item C, approval of the agenda for today's Finance and Facilities Committee meeting.
I'd like to make a motion. Shift to the agenda.
Thanks, Greg.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes from our November 29th Finance Facilities Committee meeting. Looking for approval.
I move to approve the minutes of the November 29th, 2022 committee meeting as presented.
Second. Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do this.
Aye.
All right. And item E, presentation, discussion, possible action, on potential approval of proposed budget augmentation in the amount of up to 4.5 million for the Reno Parks Commission Business Authority. Mr. Harris, is it off the?
I'm gonna defer to Courtney Jager, who is gonna walk us through the augmentation proposals for review. Courtney, you want to do the presentation?
Yeah, sounds good. Good afternoon, Courtney Jager, Vice President of Finance. The purpose of this agenda item is to review the details of a proposed budget augmentation. We're required per Nevada revised statutes to submit a budget augmentation to the state of Nevada to spend in excess of our originally budgeted expenditures. As you're aware, the Finance Committee will serve in an advisory capacity regarding this budget augmentation. The budget augmentation will not be effective until the related resolution is approved by the RSCVA Board of Directors. If approved today, we would present this budget augmentation to the board during the March board meeting. Today's presentation will be structured as follows. First, we'll talk about the revenues that will fund this budget augmentation. And one quick note here, the agenda for this meeting allows us to propose an augmentation of up to $4.5 million, which tied to our revenue estimates at the time. There were some subsequent estimates that increased that amount to 4.6 million. And once we finalized department request lists and other considerations, we decided to only propose to spend 3.2 million and use those remaining revenues towards the fiscal year 24 budget. But we did need to word the agenda the way that we did to give us the flexibility to go up to that maximum amount if needed. So I just wanted to start off by clarifying that. After we talk about revenues, we'll review in detail the proposed expenses in the budget augmentation by category. And I'll go ahead and move through this at a good pace, but feel free to stop me anytime for questions. So our proposed budget augmentation today is slightly over $3.2 million. This augmentation is funded by revenues that exceeded budget during Q2 and our revised estimates for Q3 and Q4. Once finalized, these actual and estimated revenues totaled $4.6 million. For Q2, we were over $2.7 million in excess of budget, with room tax revenues and facilities revenues making up the majority of those differences. Here we have the detail regarding the most recently completed quarter. Revenues here are broken out by month. And again, facilities revenues are the highest driver here, followed by room revenues. Regarding room revenues, as you can see, the breakdown, as you can see, total taxable room revenues are being driven by ADR. If we compare fiscal year 23 to the previous fiscal year, ADR is up 6.6%, but cash occupied rooms are down 2%. If we look a little further at total taxable room revenues by market segment, vacation rentals are still performing really well. Vacation rentals are up over 30% compared to the prior year. And this increase was actually driven primarily by occupancy, which is up 35%. ADRs for vacation rentals are down around 3.5%. The hotel segment is also up compared to the prior year, which is driven by an increase in ADR since cash occupied rooms were flat. So here we have the expense detail of our proposed budget augmentation. The majority of our spending will occur in facilities, with capital being the second highest category, and we'll go into detail regarding each of these proposed categories. So the first item we're going to discuss is capital, since the CEO is seeking the committee's direction on this particular item. During our last budget augmentation, you might recall that we added $100,000 to our budget to fund the refurbishment of the suites and the green room at the Reno Event Center. After further evaluation, we found it would be beneficial to expand this project to the concourse and the dressing rooms, and we found that a more in-depth remodel would be warranted. So the total proposal that we've received for this remodel is $512,000. So if you take that less the $100,000 already in our budget, we have a remaining $412,000 to spend. The RSCVA doesn't normally pay for capital improvements at the REC. However, our CEO did recommend that we evaluate this project given the current state of the suites and the related areas. So now that the project is a larger scope, we have a few options.
Yeah, Courtney, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Because when I looked at that, ahead of time, we manage the event center, but the city of Reno owns it.
Correct.
So we, our cost of managing is one thing, and I know we haven't made the capital probably for that very reason.
Yeah.
So if we're, and there's a need for it, absolute need for it, no question there. But if we're looking at picking up the remodel of that, is the city of Reno investing any in that cost, or are we assuming the full cost of the remodel?
So that's one of our options. So we have a few options here. One option is that we could fund a portion of the remodel and request that the city fund the other half and match with us. We could fund the entire remodel, or we could scale it back and do a more minimal remodel if we think that the city's not interested in matching any of those funds. So the CEO wanted us to get committee direction today on where we should go regarding this project. And Trent actually is going to give you a little more detail regarding each of those options and what our priorities are regarding the remodel.
Actually, before Trent gets in all that, I'd like to just say a word. So the suites themselves have not been touched since the build out in 05. Okay, so there's been no improvements made to any of the suites, the green rooms, or any of the other areas. When we came in, we asked for $100,000, it was because we knew that we needed to contribute. And I think, and I do believe we're missing revenues by not being able to sell the suites because they are basically out of date. The dollars that are allocated or suggested in the $512,000, which Trent will go through, is not only in the suites, but in the concourse areas. My recommendation has been that we should participate, but we should not fund it all. That's really for this board to decide at what level we do that. Trent has gone through and prioritized and gone through each level. But again, it's my firm belief that we shouldn't be funding the whole thing, but we can and should, based upon the revenues right now, participate in some way. We have the board's approval of 100,000. It's up to this board to make recommendations back to the overall board where we go. So Trent, you want to walk through what that 512,000 looks like?
Sure. So we started to look at the big costs, the big numbers on here, and where we, if we're gonna take it on and reduce that. So the carpet, the paint, and furniture in the suites are the key drivers. The green room would come second with those same items. The TV monitors, which is the big expense everywhere, whether it be the suites, the green room, the concourse downstairs. That's a big chunk of the money, and it comes out to just over $300,000. The building is not wired, never was intended for this type of monitors throughout. So that's a big part of the expense, is doing the wiring, doing the, excuse me, the servers and everything for the individual monitors throughout the property. So if we scale this back and hold off on the electronics portion of it right now, and do the carpet, paint, and furniture upstairs in the suites, do the green room, and hold off on the dressing rooms also at this point, because that's a minor deal on what 90% of the clients that come in there see. They usually use their own motorhomes. Then if we do that, we'll be looking at around $150,000 to $160,000 to do the carpet, paint, furnishings, the sound deadening on the walls, kind of really dress it up and make it nice. And going with a designer right now, looking at some of the different patterns and the color themes and It's really got it down nice, it's gonna really richen it up. Then if we wait until after the USBC tournament is over, we'll probably save a lot of money on the electronics because we do a big majority of it in-house. This was put together because the USBC put in there right now, we don't have spare people. It's not the cards. So if we're willing to wait a little bit, we should be able to save a lot in the electronics end of that. And then still go through, with all of the carpet painting furniture. And the furniture that we're looking at, I've got 5 or 6 different manufacturers, types. That's gonna be just everybody getting together and picking out what they like, the material, all that kind of thing. This is not, gonna be IKEA. We tried that. It's stupidest thing you can do, it's garbage. This is gonna be quality, furniture that is gonna hold up. It's gonna be durable, it's gonna be safe. So that's kind of a real quick rundown.
And when it comes to the TVs, there's no TVs that currently work in the suite because there's no electronics that are hooked up, and if we need to elevate the experience to be able to sell that, you're talking about refresh completely that needs to be done in the suites. I would also say that in the concourse areas, I think the TVs that are there 32-inch, maybe 27-inch, maybe.
Yeah.
And basically, they're not wired up, there's not even what's going on in the events, when they're out buying, goods or food, that needs to be redone completely. It'll allow us to run advertising, it'll allow us to do live streams back on the stages. Most modern facilities have those, and that's a need. It's up to this board whether it recommends to the overall board what we want to be able to do, as well as put it off, use part, or all of that.
Dr., what would be the difference? Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
No, that's fine,
Okay.
please.
So if we waited and it was in-house, what would be the difference of this, of the TV monitors plus the electronics? How much would we be saving by doing it in-house if we waited till end of July to be August?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. And this is a guesstimate because we haven't gotten in and.
And kind of ballpark.
But I would say we save $100,000.
Could I walk me through, so on the TV monitor line item for suite level 159, that's just strictly this week would be selling?
It would be the suites and the lobby out.
Oh,
front
and
suites.
Where the bar is area, well,
But not the floor.
correct.
Yeah,
And
and
then-
then right at the top of the escalators, we're gonna have a concierge desk, will be a big screen
Okay.
there also.
And then when you add in the green, the TV monitors, 101,000 under green, that's more foyer public space.
No, well, that is, yes, you're right, because we combined the two to go in from the green room and the concourse. Kind of as
Yeah.
one group, so that would cover everything downstairs.
I mean, I do, first off, I think into, Mr. Harris's point, the revenue opportunity on the suites that have really kind of never, that emphasis not really been there, and the fact that it's since '05. I mean, I do think you've got an opportunity to dress it up, to your point too, not, like, really make it a nice experience. I'm assuming these TVs would be able to be wired into whatever production company is shooting the show and that kind of thing, video, right?
Yeah.
And to me, there's a side of that I look at that and go, I would move on that soon. I think there is that discussion with the city of Reno on some of the common public spaces. Do we capture all the revenue on the suite itself?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Which I think makes that much more reason for us to not necessarily ask for this. It's our investment.
It's our investment, it's something that we could recoup. I've been talking, trying to get Domingue is set to know, to understand what the current folks are using it, how to optimize. We would still allow folks to customize those suites if they wanted to upgrade and do more, but there's things that we just need to modernize. We're talking about VIP parking spaces, valet, private entrance, some additional areas that we can broadcast and use advertising. Concierge station upstairs, which would actually greet people, make sure there aren't folks that are walking through, as well as taking care of those suites, which again, all need a lot of attention.
Dr., what would be the timeline? I'm looking, if you're looking at, say, August, for the electronics at 100,000 less. That's around 6 months, 7 months before it could be started. And then how long is the remodel process with the paint and carpet? And and then how many events? So I'm looking, how much revenue would we lose? Or would we have coming in there that the TVs, which are not good now, wouldn't change if we waited 6 months? But in the meantime, what is the timeline? How fast would those suites be ready? Would it be a month? Would it be 3 months?
The
And then-
treats, the carpet, the paint, we could have that, once we get the okay to go forward with it, we could have that done in 2 months.
Okay.
Furniture is going to be a supply issue. We have to figure out what we want and then see what the availability is on particular fabrics. As soon as that's built, that just is a delivery.
Right.
So we could have that stuff done, I'm gonna guess, because I don't know the supply chain issues right now. But realistically, we could be up and running, aside from the electronics portion of it, in 3 or 4 months without issue. And that would give us our big bang right out front where you see an immediate change. And then the electronics portion of it, again, parts availability, but the install on it should only take a couple of months at the outside and we're up and running.
We're a few months beyond that, so let's, the remodel, yeah, the remodel needs to happen, and I support that, I'm just trying to gauge, does it make sense to try to save 100,000, which is a lot of money on the electronics, while we do the other refresh with the electronics coming shortly,
And the other
3
thing-
months after.
The other thing to keep in mind also is the time schedules or whatever work we're doing in there will revolve around existing business. We're not gonna be shutting down 2 suites because there's carpet going in. They will be done in a time frame where there is no interference at all. And the people that I have already lined up for all this stuff are right there. So we won't see any interference with business.
And is our schedule pretty, how booked are we for the event center going through this time frame from now, say till next August, September?
It's
Is it just,
my latest, it's not that busy. I mean, we want to be busier.
Yeah.
We've got Reba coming up in a few weeks. We've got a couple of small ones.
There's a few shows.
But yeah, the stuff downstairs, like we have a trade show or whatever, that won't interfere with it.
When you say we save 100,000, that's taking both bites though, right? That's the overall, we did the.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if we were to just do the suite bite first, it wouldn't be a savings of 100,000 later.
No, that's suites, essentially the structure portion of it, without the electronics, it's gonna be 150, 160 grand. And that's everything but the TVs and all the associated gear that goes with it. And that electronic component of it was right around 300 and change. So that's where we would potentially see our cost savings if we go a little bit.
I mean, really, and tell me, Charlotte, is we get this, let's just say we get the suites upgraded, it's really until they're done that you're gonna be able to walk somebody in it, give them a show to see what it's like for a corporate kind of. So I mean, the long pay, I mean, on one end, I love this idea of saving something for the labor end. There's another angle, that's much, it's that much longer you're out of the game on selling it too.
And you have to make a decision whether you want to go and ask the city to participate as part of this. So you got different levels, right, that you got.
I mean, personally, I like the suite side of it from with or without it. I don't really see us in versus, that's just my take, that it goes to the full group. But I think when we start getting outside of that, it's worthwhile saying that the city had an appetite.
Sure, I mean, yeah, couple things. One is, when we do Reba, the impact for the city is, or for the RSCVA is going to have, because, you know, we fill our hotels up with Reba. Reba's, when we get one of those. But once we redo, the most important things to me are, we have to upgrade that thing, because if Reba doesn't like her green room, she's gonna spread the word in the industry. I know Charles has been good, but he sent out, Renee, I think, to one of those big shows to book business. The RCVA now has said we're open for business, because we can book shows too. Couple things too, when you look at that those are the important things. If you have a loud dream of artist spot, you want them, that's important to me, I think, a lot of it. The TVs, here's what we used to find out, if Reba was on the stage, the video walls in our suites used to be used, but then the entertainers did not want any video feeds going into the suite during a concert. And the reason was, they didn't want anybody pirating their. It was just something we kept running into, because we used to have complaints, hey, our customers go, hey, how come we can't have those TVs on? We had 2 big screens in it. It was every show we signed, they had a clause that you can't. And I don't know how predominant that is, so you go spend a lot of money on those monitors, you may not ever be able to use them.
Well, there's 2 things that, Mr. Murdock. First of all, that was the case, that what used to happen. Second thing, and what Trent has noted when we walk through, is that there are some lighting issues that they're not shown in the right direction that will distract the talent. And so we think that we solved that in terms of where we would hang that. But most places where you go today, they all have feeds. And almost any arena you go to, that isn't an issue anymore. And even if you don't have that, you can show other things within that suite as you're entertaining. So for instance, at your property, if you're bringing people in there, you might have the show on, or you might have the Laker Warrior game, whatever that is, right? So that's a place that you want to entertain. And I think that we would be remiss not to consider that, but again, that's your call.
Yeah, depending on contracting, I don't know where.
And it varies.
I don't think it's the artists, but my point is that to us, the importance is, that anybody that uses it, like Aviva, loves it and spreads word, this is the whole place. So that's important. I think Charles hit right on the nose, the green room is important, probably needs to be some electronics in the green room. I mean, that makes a lot of sense too. Again, it's like, when we do Reba, it generates from tech, that's all we're saying, and the row would just like to see send money come back down and make that thing easier to sell. In fact, we send Jen all over the country, and we've got S3, which is Senior's arm of entertainment, now full tilt on using that facility. As far as that goes. Furniture, the only question I have on that furniture is how, I use that a lot, I've been up there a lot. What do you need a lot of furniture for? What furniture are you really talking about? $52,000.
It's not a lot. It's,
What is it?
some high tops, but as opposed to what's up there right now with the base and the little leg on it, where they get all wobbly.
Are they in the suites, or are they in on the foyer?
They're in the suite.
They're in the suite.
Current.
Also, the goal would be to be able to sort of more of a complete menu in those suites.
Right.
So we talked to Airmark, they've created a tier system for different types of food, and you could have a flat table going all the way across to serve off of, as well as some couches. We're not talking about anything extravagant, but if you take that against 10 suites, you're not talking about a lot of money per suite.
And you guys are getting, Airmark gives the RSCVA back. If we do an event, if we do Reba, they sell food. They give the RSCVA back a kicker.
We get a percentage of a strong percentage of profits. Right.
So what the city may look at is you're getting all this revenue, you're fixing it, but you're also getting the kickback from revenue. Just saying that, I don't know where they'll be to want to do anything here, but the point is they're gonna say, hey, you're making revenue back to RSCVA.
Well, not only that, I think there's other things that we can bring up here that need to be looked at. The giant billboard out in front of the RSC is not working correct. That needs to be replaced. That, in my eyes, that is a city commitment. That isn't even a discussion that we have here today. But in order to make this facility the best, directly to help Caesar sell that, we're talking about improvements on different levels that have to be done. The question is, who's gonna pay for it?
That billboard's kind of important for anything, because you guys sign volleyball. I mean, you have a lot of people walking to and from, you got, okay, you say that 50,000 bowlers will be in town, that signboard's kind of important, but they're walking over there every day. Yeah, that to me is probably one of your priorities there. And again, I'm gonna take the hat that you guys should pay for a lot of this. But we can argue that out later, but I'm just thinking, here's why too, we pay to rent the facility, we have to pay to bring Reba. Not only do we pay Reba the $500,000, but we have to pay the 30,000 to rent the facility or whatever it is, so we're paying through other ways, so we would think the RCVA should pay.
But it's
It's
not-
room tax generation.
Absolutely, and I agree with you on that point. I think the only point for the city of Raymond is that they own it. So it's their property that we're enhancing,
Right.
but at the bottom line, to your points, we're generating income from the suites, which comes back to RSCVA. So an investment that normally we wouldn't be making capital investments in something you don't own. If you don't own a house, you're not gonna put capital investments in it. But because it has the potential to increase the use and increase the profitability, it makes sense for us to invest in that because we will benefit and then Reno will benefit because it's their property. So the enhancements that you're giving it are also giving the city of Reno a property that has a higher value.
For the record, the current operating agreement, and Mr. Kennedy can tell me if I'm online, but any improvements that are done in facilities that are over $10,000 is the responsibility of the city. That's the way the current agreements are set up. That's the contract, the way that it's set. This is, up to us if we want to put in an investment, and we feel that we can make that money back and, we went above and beyond the contract when Mr. Thornley came to a regular board meeting. We made the commitment on the bowling to go above and beyond that once. So.
For the sake of, and again, I'm gonna cut off discussion on this, but for the sake of just moving through this full list, and we wanna keep going, we can come back and discuss this one. Because I will be taken, I believe, as one.
It's one
Yes,
item,
motion,
for all one.
Yeah. Okay, is everybody good with moving?
Yeah, I think conversation is good though, because I think the answer is clarity on what we're doing and why would we be doing that and supporting it or not supporting it, I think is important.
Perfect.
Yeah. I agree.
So we can move on and then come back to this item to get the committee's recommendation. So we can talk about marketing and sales next. We're proposing to add $120,000 to the marketing budget, and this will use primarily towards advertising production for leisure campaigns and MNC campaigns, certain meeting expenses, and other expenses related to hospitality, travel, and promotions. We're proposing to add $161,000 to the sales budget. In convention sales, $50,000 will go towards the Biggest Little Sites program, and this program introduces clients to Reno Tahoe that have either never been to the destination or haven't been in several years. Also in convention sales, the remainder of the augmentation would address inflation noted in hospitality, travel, and familiarization tours. In tours and sales, we would be adding one additional FTE to that team.
In this, I'm sorry, is that area, is that in arts?
Yeah, it's an arts area pre-COVID. They were at four full-time employees. They've been working at 2 full-time employees, so this would get them back to 75% of where they were.
The money, when you look at the 120,000 advertising leisure campaigns, that's just more money in the kitty to extend out with partners.
Yep.
Is that what you're saying? And then, advertising production meetings and conventions, that's again, just buying more advertising.
Well, it's getting additional resources that we need to help fulfill kind of our goals.
And then meeting expenses, what exactly is that?
That is dealing with all the different agencies that we have that come in, so whether it's BBK, our PR firm, other folks that we fly into to come here to strategize and plan for the future.
And then you're giving money back to obviously the sales team to go out to hospitality, travel, and promotion.
Because what's happening is gotten a lot more expensive. So during the height of it, it was costing $1,300 to fly in Detroit. So
It's called inflation.
exactly.
Yeah, so this is, a lot of it is, their costs go up too, because of inflation. Yeah, I get that. Back to the convention side, the Biggest Little Sites program, what is that? Is that something? Can you explain, or what is it, just so we know?
It's a failed effort to reintroduce, it's basically an extension of what they've been doing.
Just a site inspection.
But it's the people that haven't been here in a while that we're going back and tracking to help generate business.
Travel and lodging is no brainer on that. And then tourism gets the sales extra.
They get the extra body.
But thank you.
Perfect. All right, so next we'll talk about the facilities department. We're proposing to add $2.4 million to the facilities budget. For Q2, facilities revenues were over 200% higher than the original projections prepared by the sales department. And year to date, facilities revenues are 134% over the sales department's original predictions. This is driven by more events than anticipated, higher overall attendance than forecasted, and higher secondary revenues. And on average, these increased levels of business are costing approximately an average of $275,000 additional per month. This augmentation replenishes funds spent in Q2 to support these higher levels of business and addresses our revised projections for Q3 and Q4. And with this augmentation, we're still maintaining the loss figure previously approved by the board, since we are intending to fully fund this with facilities revenues and no room tax dollars. So I'll talk a little bit about how we're planning to spend this money. So personnel is a large area. More events and higher attendance means that we need increased staffing, including full-time, part-time, and temporary labor. We also want to ensure that we have adequate resources regarding labor allocated to the USBC Open Championships, since that's one of our highest priority events for the year. That event is heavily staffed with part-time and temporary labor, and that's a really competitive market right now. So we want to have the ability to attract top-tier talent there. Next are utilities costs. The buildings being more active and holding more events, especially in the winter, especially this winter, drives up our costs. There's also been a large increase in energy costs due to inflation. Security services is another area that increases with increased activity at the venues, and safety and security is obviously one of our top priorities. Also, we're still addressing deferred repairs and maintenance items that had been deferred during the previous operating contract for the facilities. And again, repairs and maintenance items are items that are capitalized. This is what's required to keep existing infrastructure and equipment in working condition. And as we mentioned, when the original budget was presented, we knew going into this year that we'd have a large backlog of deferred maintenance items because those accumulated when the operation of the facilities was outsourced. Services and supplies is another area that's impacted by activity and is also heavily impacted by inflation. We're seeing costs for services and supplies increase over 10% from the prior year. And again, we are not changing the loss figure that was previously approved by the board, since we are using facilities revenues to support this augmentation. And last is the apportionment to Incline Village Crystal Bay, which is required per legislation. In Q2, the apportionment exceeded budget by $38,000. We're asking for $43,000 to include our revised estimates through the end of the year. With that, I can open it up for questions, or we could circle back to the capital item.
Courtney, if I can add one thing in there, we talked about not using all the dollars that are in proposed augmentation. The reason for that, and we're proposing to carry that over into FY24, is that we have two large sales initiatives that we're working on that we will bring back when we are ready to present. That will require additional dollars and resources. So we didn't fully fund the proposal in that, because that will be deemed necessary, and there's a direct ROI that we have on funding those two large projects.
And that was in sales or marketing?
Sales.
Sorry, can you quick, I'm just gonna jump in on a couple of the apportionment, that's by, I mean.
Legislation.
Right. The other thing I just want to point out is, I think on this facility operation, kudos, Charles, to you and your team, to see that kind of an increase. You know, we can't use these facility, you know, this facility game stuff is a property, right? It's different. We've got a hotel and a casino and we drive it, but it's, I think to see these being activated, you know, hopefully down the road, we activate it too with more overnight type stuff, but it's positive. You're stemming the flow. So
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I think the message that we all need in this room, anybody that hears this, is we're filling up the facilities. And because of that, it's gonna cost more for staffing in and around that, but that's what this board asked us to do, and that's exactly what we're doing. And kudos to Trent, Jose, and the entire facilities team that's making it work. We're seeing revenues, so that part is all good news.
What is our increase on that? Did you say 134?
134% for this number.
Facilities.
So yeah. So the sales department prepared their facilities budget last year, and we are 134% ahead of that budget.
In revenue.
For revenue, correct?
Revenue from the facility.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, if I may, your deferred maintenance, and we probably need to have the word safety in there, because if we deferred it, if the other group or before you guys got here deferred stuff, you're just playing catch up right now, which is super important. I think it's extremely smart that you brought that to our attention, that we get within where you guys feel we're compliant with everything we're supposed to be doing in most facilities. Because it doesn't look good if we burst up and, oh boy.
And for the record, again, that's $9 million that we are putting into the facilities this year, which is the largest that we have made a commitment to the facilities in 20 years.
That's great. It's hard. The other thing, when you look at, we should be thankful that we have expenses actually using the facilities, right? I mean, sometimes, I know there's times when we don't have anybody in those buildings, the expense gets a little hard, so I would say,
Buildings on first.
right, it's just like you're getting a little room tax for us, and I think that's really cool. Good.
On the security services, is that are contracted out, BSI or wherever?
Yeah, it's a combination, so it's gonna be our day-to-day operations, but gonna be security that's hired for events. And the more events, the larger events, the type of the event is gonna dictate what we need in staffing levels.
And that includes the SI too.
It does.
Yes,
It does.
absolutely.
So you have to have security no matter whether you're using the building for an event or not. You still need
Yes.
security. And you.
It just gets more expensive when you have events.
Yeah, and you use the SI, correct? That's contract, right, contract, yeah. Okay.
So Trent, of all the facilities, kind of give me an idea, utilization, obviously the Boeing Center right now with USBC being here has rocketed up, but of our other facilities, I know we've been working hard to increase everything coming in each facility, because when we do that, then they're staying in your hotel and they're generating room tax dollars and they're bringing the economic impact here. But where are we on our other facilities as far as how well are we getting them booked, and what is the increase that we're seeing in each of the others?
Courtney could give you the percentages of the convention center for,
Well,
But
let me
if
just
you
jump in.
have the magic
Let
answer.
me just jump in. And the CEO reports that we issue every month, Madam Chair, we now show the occupancy of every single of the 4 facilities. We also show occupancy and revenue year to date and 30 days trailing. So we've created those reports that are in the CEO reports, and they're up, I believe, all the way across all 4 facilities for the year.
Yeah, and just some other interesting facts. So the projection that the sales department prepared last year, comparing that to what materialized in Q1 and Q2, we had over 50 additional events at the convention center that weren't planned for last year. The REC, we had over 7 events. NBS, we had around 27 small events, and at the REC, we had around 11 events. So there's definitely a larger number of events than what was planned last year. And then all the existing events, a lot of them had higher attendance too.
Wow, nice. Nice. That's a win on all sides for sure. Yeah. But it does cost more, and it, whereas, yeah, and they're already borne out, so yeah, to Mr. Murdoch's point, really that deferred maintenance, trying to catch up to that when you, and I think I talked to you and some of your staff at breakfast I went to, where they were explaining to me convention center, and it was built at all different times. So the roof and the whole inside and outside of that building, because it was built at different times, there's different age of the facility and the roof and HVAC, I mean, everything inside is a challenge because it's so big, but because the age of the building itself, let alone trying to keep up with that, so. yeah.
it's fun.
I'll tell you one thing, kudos to you guys, because what you've done with that pickleball is for usage, and I'm sure you're getting revenue. It's Matt Williams, or I'm sure you guys get revenue off all the basketball and all those things when they're even local. That's really smart, and that I hear nothing but positive on on the local side of things. That pickleball is huge.
It's insane. They're waiting at the door when it opens up, and they have to be escorted out when it closes.
Tell the sales department to do a invite by state pickle tournament and bring in the picklers to pickle all over.
Well, I do think it's taking a resource you have and ideally, look, and any pickleball player, it'd be great if we had such capacity issues, we have to turn some business away.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that you're taking an opportunity, I think it's great, and yeah, maybe it does lead into a more organized overnight generator, but for the sake of moving the discussion along, is it and I'm just gonna throw this out there, is it worth? I'm personally good with approving, moving forward on the agenda item. On, when we go back to the full amount for the event center. Is it worth, can we highlight the motion to where we've approved it with further discussion with the full board on that second component? I think the suite, personally, I think the suite's not where it's a revenue generator for us. I have less question on, we get the revenue, I think we gotta make the investment, that's what we're gonna sell. But be open to that, the remaining bite of the green room breakdown.
My suggestion is that this group passes it as it is, and then have that further discussion once you get to the board to see if you want to bond that or not.
Application.
Mr. Kenny, does that work?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, you
Might be a better way to do it.
And then you keep it clean, and we get into the full board.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I think, yeah, presenting it with those couple of options, and I'm really personally looking at it, it all needs to be done. And even if we're picking up the whole dime on it, and rather than trying to wait to go through the city of Reno, and is that, I mean, is that going to take us later in the game? Because we need it done right now, and we are enhancing their facility, but it's also producing revenue for us. I'm invested, and I think for me, it's only a matter of, well, from timing, does it make sense to try to do the TV upgrade a couple months after you've got everything else done? With the hope that we would save $100,000 for the in-house, because timing wise, it would only be a couple months delay. And right now, it's not there, so will it make that big of a difference to have it all done 3 months earlier or 4 months earlier? And if it did, then yeah, then let's go for it. But if not, for me, I'm kind of, that's where I would be leaning on that expense.
What I think we would do is we would get a list of scheduled events between now and the end of the year that we would present for the full board meeting, and then we look at what that potential impact looks like.
Yeah, that would help, because we want it up and running. If we've got a lot of events, or we can, and then for sales bringing in more, we're selling that is, once it's done, it's an easy sell, but.
Easier.
Easier.
Just one more comment. When we pay $3 downtown on the surcharge, we pay $2 to fund downtown, and then we pay $1 back out here too as well. For whatever that $1 is used for, it's gonna be advertising, CapEx, could be, but we do ship a dollar back out here for things too, so everybody's paying their fair share to get some. I'm just trying to keep it equal, fair, there's $3 downtown on the surcharge too, those one. And I know the city of Reno, in that way, that surcharge, Ben, you can speak to this. It's for not just necessarily building, it's for any improvement the city wanted to do 1 mile around downtown. So there is that spot that, they do use that surcharge for not just the stadium, or not just, they use it for playground equipment down it, or whatever it is. So just thoughts, just bringing it to everybody's attention and keep it.
So can you be specific on the $2, what are they limited on spending that $2 fee that you guys are collecting that goes to the city?
So I'm making a note here, the board meeting to go look at that statute and have that exact answer, but my recollection off the top of my head is the city can use it for any recreational facility within a 1 mile radius. So it picks up
Called Cowboy,
or livestock events.
Livestock events, so.
yeah, but they could use it to fix a sign, they could fix the arch, they could.
I mean, it's not a city general fund, it is limited, I don't know
But
exactly.
you can use it. To your point, though, it's like, Stephen, you guys pay $2 for charge too, right, don't you?
It's not that, yeah, we do pay.
Yeah, they-
surcharge,
yeah,
it goes direct, it's not used for that.
But yours is out here, right, and then the dollar, we take the extra $1 downtown out here for, like I say.
I think it's for the flight,
It's for the air
service
program.
and general market.
The general market, yeah.
Well, it's the master plan or the strategic plan, right? It's not the surcharge.
Yeah,
Or two.
we just happen to have $1 more that we have, that actually we use the $2 for the 1 mile radius downtown for whatever, the $1 goes back here for everybody.
Is that also that $1, that general, does that come in outside, does it come for Sparks, which right now just within our.
No, you know, I don't think so.
No, it's just paying dollars.
There is the tourism infrastructure
And
committee.
we've got, yeah, the tourism infrastructure.
But that's a different,
I think that all this goes on to the April, finance, presentation that Courtney's gonna make, kind of a refresher. for all
Yeah, we were
of
gonna do, just an overall how room tax works, like we talked about previously.
yeah, show that it.
And I think if you're gonna say,
Yeah,
right, that's what we're planning on.
I think for the sake of this, if everybody would get, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Oh, and Stephen, just to
Oh, I'm
clarify
sorry.
really quickly, so would the finance committee's recommendation be that the RSCVA pay for the full amount or that the board discuss and come to a decision? Because the board will look for what the finance committee's recommendation was on this item, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
so when you say full amount, we're doing,
So
412
412
plus already
it's the finance committee's endorsement that we pay the full 12 with discussion from the board, or what, how would you like that worded?
I'm taking it that we're approving it as it's being written.
Okay.
It's the full amount. Knowing that we're gonna have full discussion with the
Okay.
board, and we can explain it
that's
too.
on the event center.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I thought we were looking at full amount, full amount.
Oh, no, just
Well,
just for the capital item. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I word that correctly when I present it to our board.
So if I can help, I think the motion is to approve it as presented. With caveat that we're gonna revisit it more.
Right, that'd be great.
That's a good way to go. Thank you.
Because this is not a separate motion, our motion is for the full augmentation as presented today,
correct.
which would include this one piece of it.
And including the rollover dollars into FY twenty.
And the
Right.
rollover dollars. From your stuff you guys.
Correct. So we'll come back to that.
And the stuff that you're rolling over is our revenue potentially could be revenue generators for all of them.
Correct.
So we're full augmentation today, Courtney, would be 3.2 million.
Correct.
Okay, just to make sure I'm clear. Thank
So
you.
we'll entertain a motion that we've had full discussion.
I'd like to make the motion.
Okay, second. Bill Moore second.
This-
Can I second? Is that?
Sure, let's make, so the motion is to approve it as presented.
Yes.
With the sort of caveat or note that we'll discuss the event center in further detail with the entire board.
Okay, I will second that motion as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved. We will move to item F, committee member announcements, reports and updates. I don't know if anybody has anything or Charles, the one thing I was gonna say is, and I know we've worked off it before, kind of, Mr. Murdoch brought up it on this deferred maintenance schedule. Can we get an update next run around of just kind of where we are on the list, what we ticked off? Because we made progress.
Yeah.
So.
We have,
And we're gonna
actually,
continue
yeah, and well, and any delays that we have with supply chain, but I talked about it this morning actually. So, I think we're.
Yeah, and that kind of is really helpful. I know I sit on a capital planning for the school district, and it really helps when we get a spreadsheet that shows what we budgeted.
Completed, in progress.
Right, in progress, completed, and then checking them off when we're through, and if we were under or over budget, that's super helpful, because it's easy to just follow on a, one sheet thing.
We will create that.
That'd be great.
Perfect. And we'll move to item G, I'm assuming no comments in the public.
None of this time.
We are adjourned.